This again is another Blind Guardian round, a very important Blind Guardian round about A Night at the Opera. We have a very nice guest again, Charlie, welcome.
Hi.
You may have to say something about the album.
I may have to say so. I think it's really brilliant. I mean, it did cost a lot of work. A lot of work went into it and a lot of creativity, and it just took a long time, but it was worth every second.
You should have bought it.
Yeah, I got it for free somewhere. Someone gave it to me for free.
He can even listen it in 96 kilohertz.
Exactly. I have the really good sound.
So we want to start a little bit before the album. Before the Nightfall and Imaginations and all these albums were composed in your bunkers, and you had a special working scheme back then, and that changed with The Night at the Opera.
Yeah, you did it 24/7.
Okay.
We came into the evening, during the day, and then you got together everyone. But now it was time to try another way of composing songs.
Yeah, we moved from the bunker to this place here, and we first set up one room here in this area with our system. We brought in our mixing desk and the whole recording system, and of course tried to work the same way we did before in the beginning. But I found it after a while very inconvenient to drive here every day, and
It's a long drive.
it's a long drive. It's
10 kilometers.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with a not like this. It's more like when you how can I say, you are more flexible.
When you're young, you like to be away from home. When you're old, you like to stay in your house. That says something.
No, let's say the option came up that computers took over, everything became more digital, and the home recording situation was available from one day to the other. There was a PC system available that you could work with a program like Logic and have the possibility to record at home. And on the other hand, there was this Line 6 guitar simulator, the pod, and you could record a guitar in your house without having this noise of an amplifier. So this combination, we were always going with a technical development. Whenever I brought you in, come on, and you were maybe a little bit
good apprentice. Let's keep it like this.
You
I was good
on distance in the beginning, but then you were like very curious about everything.
The apprentice became the master.
The apprentice touched one key and the system crashed.
That is a fact for some of the recordings when we started with computers. When I entered the room, sometimes the system crashed.
Systems
And,
didn't like him.
He did not believe in it for the first, for the first appearances. But after a while, he said, "Yeah, it's better you go away."
Because the only time it happened before was when I was mixing Venom. My whole system broke down. Then when Nancy entered the room, the same things happened. I went like, what's wrong with him?
In other studios, there's a sign, you leave your mobiles outside, and here's the sign, like, leave Hansi outside.
It's my superpower. It's all the energy. Yeah, but you got the computer stuff at home. There was no need for you to come over. And I liked my isolation here because I had this beautiful place for myself, even though it was not completely finished at that time.
Not for long, because I built two systems. I built the system for myself.
Later.
That was later with the two PCs.
The analog system has been used for the whole opera songwriting.
Yeah, so I drove here through then I mixed something up. Then we did the songwriting for the opera on the analog system here, and I drove every day
No,
here.
you did not. You worked at home with
Really?
the computer, yeah.
Okay.
And you came, you can approve that. You came with a mini disc system, a stereo mixing of these complicated Night at the Opera songs, and they're all complicated and very wisely woven. You know, all the stuff which is in there makes total sense. But if you have a stereo file and, you know, in a sort of pre-production, it's hard to judge everything. So you transferred that stuff to my analog system, and we built in a click which was, you know, never really synchronized to that stereo playback or the other way around. And I started doing my composings on that. And then you came back after 3 weeks. You know, we had basically before that we always worked on pieces like 8 bars, 16 bars, and then you went home. I came the other day, did my vocals, and we continued like this, and we exchanged papers every day, you know, like small letters, you know, what happened and, you know, what was the part supposed to be. Then Andre started composing like, let's say, 32 bars to 64 bars in the beginning, and then he delivered the stuff to me via mini disc, and I started working here and tried to, you know, come up with whatever, you know, I was able to come up with. And then you got the stuff from me and continued composing. But when you got back the next time, I was working on this tape on another song already. So we delivered the music again to my tape, but at a different spot on this tape. So we never had the whole composition at one place. The only one who had it partly was you, and you just had your arrangements, but my vocals as stereo files.
Yeah, true. And the biggest change was that, or the result of that system change was that we, like Hansi said, the pieces we worked on became longer. So of course you have a kind of arrangement already there, which was not the case before. Until then there was only like one new part, and everything could go from there, but then much more was fixed already. Because Hansi of course took these arrangements serious and tried to bind these parts already. And the feedback of me to his work came much later than before. Before the exchange was faster, and then it became a little bit, the frequency of exchanging ideas became slower. And we exchanged bigger pieces of work. And in an album, like the music style changed a little bit with opera, and it became more complex, and so it was even more difficult for us to get along with the material, and the songwriting process was probably the most difficult one between us.
Yeah.
It was we had to adjust, and we had to find a new way to deal with this material, because all of a sudden everything was different and it felt different. And I think especially for you to catch the feelings was more difficult than before. And yeah, we had many discussions, but we both couldn't really figure out what was the problems at that time. We saw it later on. I think we maybe
experienced it.
Yeah, we found out. Yeah, but anyways, it became. We managed to bring the songwriting on another level. I mean, a song like "And Then There Was Silence" is not nothing, and it's I think it was a good direction we tried. It was the vision to improve from an album like Nightfall was there. We really wanted to go the next step. We had that unbelievable concept album in our bags, and we tried to go from there and maybe bring Blind Guardian to a more epic way, which was not there before. That really epic way only came up with "And Then There Was Silence," and we were working on that and trying to do something there.
There was more. I believe that we all felt that we were done with the era of, you know, whatever we have done before, and we really felt the need to progress and get into other directions, and we were really looking for a more modern sounding direction, and to something would have the quality to compete with Nightfall in every matter, but to show different aspects of Blind Guardian. And that is, you know, how we started the songwriting. You also apart from the computer stuff, got some new material, some new effects, like, you know, chorus guitars you want to try out. And I mean, this is how we relate to music. I've said that so many times. We don't want to repeat ourselves. And the more development there is, the better it is for us, you know, no matter what the consequences are. But from the artistical standpoint, I would still say is A Night at the Opera was or is our most ambitious album, and it contains a quality which does definitely have the potential to compete with either Imaginations or Nightfall. And what is overseen, I think in many ways, maybe with Imaginations, it is our most aggressive album.
If we go back to Nightfall, you mentioned before, Andre, that you recorded it with Pro Tools for the first time. And of course, that is an instrument that you can use to really build layers, and it's easy to change parts. And how important was that for the actual songwriting when you wanted to take it to another level?
I found out already during the recordings with Pro Tools that this tool opens new options, even could be very useful for songwriting. So I wanted to work with a digital system because when we tried out arrangements, it was pain in the ass because we had to record everything again. If you wanted to change a part, you had to record the whole song again, and we did this several times on our 16-track. You will probably find tapes, and you have 3 different versions of the song recorded as a demo, and that was work. You lost a whole day or maybe 2 only to try out one part. And now in the digital system, of course it was not helping you to have better ideas or to be more creative. Not that way, but you could, when it came to the point that the song was almost done and you wanted to try out different arrangements, then it was fast and then it was effective. And that I didn't want to miss anymore, and I only made use of this. That's why it was perfect for me to have it in a system, everything, and to copy Hansi's vocals into the system, bring everything together, cut my parts and see which arrangement could work best for the song in the end. That was the most positive effect I could see in that system.
So basically the development into this direction would maybe not have been possible if it wasn't for working with Pro Tools, or what do you think?
For the arrangements, I see, yes, we could, a song like And Then There Was Silence is so complex from the arrangement. Like you need to keep the interest and the dynamic over more than 12 minutes. And I think without trying this out in a digital system, you would have no chance to.
Also in the production, it would have been impossible. There's no chance, you know, in both words, impossible. What we have is a complexity and a depth, and this depth is significant in every single part, and we have a bunch of parts.
Yeah, well, there was even more parts composed for that song. What you hear in the end, in the final version, is not what we had. We had like at least 40% more material for that song. And
Silence.
For Silence. Yeah. And we were playing around with these parts. We exchanged parts, and we always had this pool of other ideas, and it was like a puzzle, and we checked out which puzzle pieces would be the best to have the whole picture in the end.
Nightfall was supposed to be the first album to be recorded here, which eventually you didn't manage to complete as it was a construction site. But for opera, now was the time, so you actually built a studio and you had the idea, now let's finish it here, but you experienced some problems. It was still a learning process.
Yeah, it was a learning process. The stage was set up for the album production. Everything was nice here.
It looked nice.
We had a studio designer here first, you know, and he was supposed to build in a real mixing room. That should have been the core, and everything else should have been built around that. But that was too expensive. We could not afford that. and we thought it was not necessary because regular rooms would do the trick. So we built everything by ourselves and with the help of some of our friends. We progressed well. We had some discussions with you about the setups, but more or less you didn't have any idea what we were doing here. So
It was taken by surprise.
we have set up the thing. The production was supposed to start. We had our stuff together. We may talk about Tom's drum arrangements later on. But everything was set up and it was obvious we would start the production the next day. You came by and you saw the room and you were like, okay, that will be adventurous again, but at least the rooms are there. We built up everything. You had still some maintenance work to do because we did not have the wires and all the
There was
cables.
no cabling in the studio.
No cabling at all.
And there were no holes going through the walls to put the cables through as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, it just got overseen that we might need some
But
cables.
there was power. There was energy, there was water.
We were thinking wireless. We were far ahead of our time. We were far ahead of our
So
time.
that needed to be fixed first, and the machines needed to be connected because we have had that very nice hard disk recording system. We were also relying on your system, which needed to be connected. That all had to be set up. So this was done, and then the next thing we figured was that the drums were not good enough, as far as I remember. Or that the arrangements Tom has come up with did not really satisfy our needs for the album.
I think that what we always try to be between any production, but especially on this one, try to learn from the things that happened during Nightfall. And one of the things was, that I said, look, we need to give Tolman at least the chance to, have a proper playback to play to. And so the first thing was like putting it all together.
Yes.
And there was a lot of, now it gets a little bit technical, but it's like, unsynchronicity between the parts that were like, he put it just not synchronized onto his analog tape, then back to him. So I had like to make up an arrangement with separate tracks for the whole album. It took like forever because I had to bring in, basically bounce over all the analog stuff, not rearrange it in like a artistic way, but technically, to put it in the right spot, and then and put together so we had like a playback for Tolman to actually play the song through. And because they worked like that, I think Tolman was also supposed to do some work. So he had done work, but it was only like some spots. And whenever he didn't have an idea, it was like, we do percussion. It's true. I mean, this is it. That was just his idea, and of course, that can be done and everything. But so it was very fragmented, and at some point I just said, look, we need to sit down and figure out, what the drum arrangement might be, and as we have done it before. With Nightfall on the real set, and I know that he would not be able to do it any different. He would still like hit it so hard that the heads would go, and we would have to rebuild the drum kit basically. So I said, no, let's try to do it with a MIDI drum. That was the idea. Either program it and come up with the arrangements. Or, that was then Tolman was saying, then let's get a MIDI drum. And, like Tolman was or still is, he went to Hansi and said, I just saw this really great MIDI drum kit, that I want to get. And it's 5,500 marks. And Hansi went like, what? But it was at that time you had like these hard pads kind of thing at Simmons, where you really actually can hurt your angles, or they just came out with what's called a mesh head, which is like basically it feels like a drum head to play on, but it's not. It's just basically like a t-shirt kind of thing or whatever. So that's what he wanted to get. So we drove down to Cologne, got this thing here, and set it up. And hooked it up, through MIDI, so we had all the sounds and blah blah, and started working on the stuff. But as he is so physical, he could not hold back. Normally you're supposed to play lightly and lay out the ideas, but he was banging this thing. He was like hitting so hard that actually this thing's broke, and we were sitting there going like, please hold back. and it, you know, that took him a while to, like, you know, get a little bit used to it, and then we just went for the ideas, and it was actually, he had a lot of, you know, great ideas, but as he, you know, he's always playing out of his stomach, so to speak, you know, he doesn't, it's not planned, he plays something. And of course, now when you're in the MIDI world, you know, it's like all the triggers, whatever, you just go like, okay. And he played the idea and said, oh, this is great. But, you know, of course, even so it might not have been played great in that instance, I went like, and I went, so I just rearranged it so it would present his idea. You know, and later on, when we went in and actually were trying to play it, it seemed to him that these ideas didn't come from him, which is actually not true. It's all his ideas. I just kept them and, you know, made them listenable for him. And this was like, you know, one of the things later on when we recorded the drums, where he went like, we had a hard time replaying the stuff that he invented, basically. But, you know, of course, you know, it takes what it takes. And
But the result is stunning.
Yeah,
I think,
you know,
the drum arrangements as well as the performance on the album is up to date his best performance.
Yeah.
Mhm.